Virgo, what if these two words are heavier than they look? Say them out loud and feel how they sit on your tongue, not like a question, like a threshold, a door that has been painted shut for so long that the wood has swollen around the frame, and now someone is pushing against it from the other side. You can hear the hinges groaning. You can feel the draft slipping through the crack. You can smell the rain on his coat, even though he has not stepped through yet. What if he came back? Not in a dream. Not in a memory that surfaces at 3 a.m. to torture you before dawn. What if he came back apologizing with his real voice, his real hands, his real eyes, the ones you stopped picturing because picturing them was costing you too much? What if he stood in front of you with the weight of every mistake he made pressing down on his shoulders like a coat made of wet stone, and he said the words, the real words, not the words he practiced in the mirror, not the words his friends told him would work, the words that broke through his own defenses on the drive over, the ones that made him pull the car over because he was crying too hard to see the road? What if? I want you to sit with that possibility for longer than you are comfortable with, because your Virgo mind has already raced ahead. It has already drafted the response. It has already cataloged the risks, the probabilities, the historical precedents. It has already pulled the file marked him from the cabinet where you store your disappointments, and it has reviewed the evidence with the ruthless efficiency of a prosecutor who has never lost a case. And the verdict, your mind has decided, is guilty. Guilty of wasting your time, guilty of taking your softness for granted, guilty of leaving the door open on his way out and letting the cold air in, guilty of every small cruelty that accumulated like sediment until the river of your love could no longer flow. And that verdict is correct. It is fair. It is just. But fairness, Virgo, is not the same as truth. And justice is not the same as destiny. And what I need you to understand, what I need you to feel in the hollow of your throat where your breath catches when you are afraid of wanting something, is that the apology is not about him. It never was. The apology is about you. It is the universe handing you a mirror and asking if you are ready to see who you have become since he last looked at you. Because you have become someone else, not dramatically, not in the way that makes for good social media captions. You have become someone else in the quiet, invisible way that soil becomes capable of growing something new. You have been alone with your own heart for long enough that you have learned its topography. You know where the fault lines are. You know where the water table rises. You know which parts of you are fertile and which parts are still poisoned by the salt of old tears. And the person who is about to stand in front of you with an apology in his mouth does not know this new terrain. He thinks he is returning to familiar ground. He thinks he is walking back into the garden he left untended, expecting to find the same flowers in the same beds. He does not know that you have burned the old garden, that you have replanted, that the soil has been turned so deeply that nothing he recognizes remains on the surface. And his apology, however sincere, however soaked in genuine remorse, is going to land like a seed from last season on Earth that has already committed to a different harvest. But let me tell you what his apology will look like, because I see it, not because I read cards, because I read the energy of human regret, and his regret has been building to a pressure that is about to rupture. He is going to arrive unannounced or over-announced. Either a text that comes at an hour when no polite text should come, or a silence so loud it fills the room before he does. He is going to look different. Not better, not worse, different. The way people look when they have been through something that has stripped them of a layer they did not know they were wearing. Thinner in the face, older around the eyes, or maybe softer. Maybe the hardness that made him leave has been dissolved by the specific acid of missing you. He is going to stand there, and the first thing he is going to say will be wrong. Not because he is cruel, because he is nervous. Because he has rehearsed this moment so many times that the script has become meaningless, and now that the moment is real, he is improvising. And improvisation, for someone who hurt you, is dangerous. It reveals what they actually feel instead of what they think they should feel. He might say, I was wrong. He might say, I have been thinking about you. He might say, I did not know what I had until it was gone, which is the oldest sentence in the language of regret, so old that it should have lost its power, but somehow has not. And when he says it, you are going to feel something. Do not be ashamed of what you feel. You might feel anger. You might feel relief. You might feel a sudden inappropriate urge to laugh because the scene is so familiar from your fantasies that its reality feels like a parody. You might feel your knees weaken, not because you still love him the way you did, but because your body remembers the architecture of his presence. Your cells recognize his frequency before your mind has time to object. And that recognition is not weakness. It is biology. It is history. It is the body keeping score of every intimacy, and the score does not reset just because the game ended. But here is what I need you to do in that moment. I need you to look at him not with the eyes of the person he left. I need you to look at him with the eyes of the person you are now. And the person you are now is not interested in apologies that function as time machines. She is not interested in going back. She is interested in whether this apology is a bridge or a trap. A bridge has two ends. It connects where you are to where you might want to go. A trap has bait. It offers comfort, nostalgia, the sweet familiarity of a known voice, and it snaps shut the moment you reach for it. You are going to have to decide in the space of a single breath which one he is offering, and the only way to know is to listen to what is underneath the words. Underneath the words, if it is a bridge, you will hear responsibility. Not just I was wrong, but I was wrong, and here is exactly how, and here is what I have done to ensure I do not repeat it, and here is the evidence that I have changed. You will hear him name your pain without you having to remind him. You will hear him describe moments he wounded you that you never even told him about, because he has finally developed the capacity to see what was invisible to him before. You will hear a timeline, not of his suffering, of his work, the therapy sessions, the books, the conversations with people who held him accountable. The nights he spent forcing himself to reread your old messages, not to indulge in nostalgia, but to confront the person he was when he wrote the careless replies. If the apology is a bridge, it will be heavy with proof. It will be exhausting in its thoroughness. It will feel less like a romantic gesture and more like a dissertation on remorse. And that, Virgo, is the only kind of apology you should even consider accepting. Not because you are cold, because you are precise, because you know that love without evidence is just performance art. Underneath the words, if it is a trap, you will hear neediness disguised as devotion. You will hear, I cannot live without you, which is not a compliment. It is a hostage situation. You will hear him describe his own pain in vivid detail while your pain remains a footnote. You will hear the word always used as a weapon. I always loved you. I always knew you were the one. If he always knew, why did he act like he did not? You will hear him minimize what he did. I was going through something. I did not know how to communicate. I was scared. These sentences may be true. They are not irrelevant, but they are not apologies. They are explanations, and explanations, however accurate, do not heal the wound. They just describe the knife. And you, in that moment, are going to want to comfort him. This is the part that makes me want to reach through the screen and hold your hand. Because your instinct, your beautiful, ruinous Virgo instinct, is going to be to make him feel better, to soften the blow of your own boundary, to say it is okay when it is not okay, to say I understand when understanding is not the same as forgiveness, to say I am not angry when anger is exactly what you feel, and anger is exactly what you have earned the right to feel. Do not comfort him, not yet, maybe not ever. His discomfort is not your problem. His regret is not your burden to carry. You have been carrying enough. You have been carrying the weight of his absence, the weight of his silence, the weight of every night you wondered what you did wrong when the truth is that you did nothing wrong. You were just too much for someone who was not enough. And now that he has finally realized the magnitude of his mistake, you do not owe him the relief of your forgiveness. Forgiveness, if it comes, must come from a full cup, and your cup is still filling. But what if it is real? What if the apology is a bridge, and what if you cross it? What then? What does the other side look like? I need you to understand that the other side is not a reunion. It is not a rewind. It is not the two of you picking up where you left off as if the interruption was just a commercial break. The other side is a new country, a country with different laws, different customs, different currency. The currency is no longer blind trust. It is verified action. The laws are no longer unspoken assumptions. They are explicit agreements. The customs are no longer the old routines that made you feel safe until they did not. They are new rituals, negotiated, tested, respected, and he is going to have to learn this country the way a refugee learns a new language, with humility, with mistakes, with the exhaustion of never being able to fall back on what used to come naturally. You are going to have to teach him, not through lectures, through boundaries, through the way you pull back when he reaches for you too quickly, through the way you correct him when he uses the old nickname that used to make you melt but now just reminds you of the version of yourself who tolerated too much, through the way you say, I need time, and mean it, even when he looks at you with eyes so full of longing that it would be easier to just surrender. You are going to have to be the teacher of your own worth, and teaching is exhausting. It is noble and it is necessary, but it is exhausting, and you need to ask yourself whether you have the energy for it. Whether the student is worth the curriculum, whether the diploma at the end, a relationship that is finally equal, finally respectful, finally worthy of you, is worth the semesters of emotional labor you will have to invest. Some of you will decide it is worth it. And if you decide that, if your heart says yes, even while your mind is still reviewing the risk assessment, then I need you to do it with your whole chest. Do not half love him out of pity. Do not quarter love him out of nostalgia. If you let him back in, let him back in, because the new version of him meets the new version of you, and the meeting is not a collision but a convergence. Let him back in, because his presence adds to your life instead of subtracting from it. Let him back in because you trust him, not because he asked for trust, but because he rebuilt it brick by invisible brick in the time you were apart. Let him back in because your body relaxes when he enters the room, not because you are relieved that the loneliness is over, but because his energy genuinely harmonizes with yours. And if that is true, if the harmony is real, then the relationship that emerges will be deeper than the first one, because it will be built on truth instead of fantasy, on choice instead of convenience, on the specific hard-won knowledge of what you actually need instead of the generic hope that love would be enough. But some of you will decide it is not worth it. And that decision, Virgo, is not a failure. It is not bitterness. It is not the inability to forgive. It is clarity. It is the recognition that some bridges lead back to places you have outgrown, that some apologies, however sincere, arrive too late, that the person who hurt you may have changed, but the change does not obligate you to participate in its reward. You are allowed to look at his remorse and say, I am glad you have grown. I am glad you understand. But I have grown too, and the direction of my growth no longer intersects with yours. You are allowed to close the door, not with rage, not with a slam, with the quiet, devastating finality of someone who has already moved their furniture to a new address. You are allowed to let him keep his apology. You do not have to cash the check. You do not have to accept the gift. You do not have to make his redemption your responsibility. And here is the secret that no one tells you about the moment he comes back. The secret is that his return is not about him at all. It is about your relationship with yourself. It is the final exam of a course you have been taking in your own worth. The exam question is simple. When someone who once treated you as optional returns to treat you as essential, do you believe them? And more importantly, do you believe yourself? Do you believe that you are essential? With or without their validation, do you believe that your value did not decrease when they left and does not increase now that they have returned? Do you believe that you are the constant and they are just a variable? And variables can be solved for or discarded without changing the fundamental equation of who you are. If you believe that, truly believe it in the marrow of your bones, then whatever you choose will be correct. If you take him back, you will take him back from a place of power, not need. If you send him away, you will send him away from a place of peace, not spite. And either way, you will win, because the win was never about getting him back or keeping him gone. The win was about arriving at a place where his presence or absence is no longer the defining feature of your landscape, where you are the mountain and he is just weather. Sometimes he rains on you, sometimes he shines. But the mountain remains. I want to describe the version of you that exists on the other side of this decision, because I see her so clearly. She is calmer than the version of you who was waiting. She is not pacing anymore. She is not checking her phone. She is not rehearsing speeches or drafting responses or imagining scenarios that make her stomach clench. She is simply living. She is tending to her own garden with the devotion she once reserved for trying to save his. She is reading books that have nothing to do with relationships. She is laughing at jokes that are not about heartbreak. She is sleeping through the night without dreaming of his face. And when he appears, whether in person or in her thoughts, she feels him the way she feels a change in the weather. She notices, she acknowledges, She adjusts her coat and she keeps walking. That is the goal, Virgo, not revenge, not reconciliation, not the satisfaction of watching him grovel or the romance of watching him transform. The goal is indifference, not the cold, bitter indifference of someone who is still hurting. The warm, spacious indifference of someone who has healed so thoroughly that his return is just information, not instruction, just data, not destiny. Just a man at a door, holding words you may or may not need, while you stand inside a house you built yourself, with walls thick enough to withstand any storm and windows wide enough to let in any light. So when he comes, when the apology arrives, when the what if becomes he is here, breathe, feel your feet on the floor. Remember that you were whole before him. You were whole during his absence, and you will be whole after whatever comes next. Listen to his words, weigh them, test them, but do not let them rearrange your furniture. Do not let them rewrite your history. Do not let them convince you that the pain he caused was a necessary ingredient in the recipe of your becoming. You would have become magnificent without his cruelty. You would have become magnificent without his absence. Your magnificence is not his gift to claim. It is yours. It has always been yours. And whatever you decide it for you. Not for the story you will tell your friends, not for the fantasy of the happy ending, not for the fear of being alone or the fear of making a mistake. Decide it because your body knows. Your body always knows. It knew when he was bad for you before your mind admitted it. It knows now whether he is good for you, whether the apology is a bridge or a trap, whether the door should open or stay closed. Trust it. Trust the intelligence of your own skin. It has kept you safe through every storm. It will keep you safe through this one. What if he came back apologizing? What if he did? What if the words you have been waiting for in some secret room of your heart finally arrived at your doorstep in a voice you recognize? What if the scene played out exactly as you imagined, or nothing like you imagined, or somewhere in the messy human middle? What if, after all the waiting and the wanting and the wondering, the choice was not about him at all? What if the choice was about whether you were ready to be the person who does not need an apology to feel complete, who does not need a return to feel chosen, who does not need a past to be repaired in order to build a future that is already under construction? What if you were already free? What if his apology was just a letter delivered to an address you no longer live at? What if you read it or you do not read it, and either way, the sun rises tomorrow on a life that is yours, completely, irrevocably, beautifully yours? That is the reading, Virgo. That is the message. Not a prediction, not a promise, a mirror, held up to the part of you that already knows what she will do when the door finally opens. And the knowing is not in your mind. It is in your breath. It is in the way your shoulders drop when you imagine saying yes. It is in the way your spine straightens when you imagine saying no. It is in the quiet, unshakable truth that whatever comes next, you will survive it. You will learn from it, and you will continue to become more yourself with every step. He may come back, he may not. The apology may be real, it may be performance. The bridge may hold, the trap may snap. None of that is within your control. What is within your control is the fortress of your own heart. The walls are thick, the gates are strong, and the person who decides who enters and who does not is not him. It is not me. It is not fate. It is you. And you have never been more ready.